Hello everyone, Loremaster of Sotek here, and I hope you're all doing well today because the pirates have been seen off the coasts. And let's go ahead and start talking about their start positions. Almost lost that sentence there. So I am actually really pleased with this. We'll get into the one big change in a minute. Let's go ahead and start off with the ones that everyone pretty much already knew was going to happen, and then we'll get into the exciting one. So first, we of course have the Pirate King himself, the big man who everyone else gets to steal his faction name to be a part of his team, even though he was first, and that is of course Luther Harkon, and he has taken over the Vampire Coast, as he should. His start position is great. He's got like this really nice carve out. You know, he's kind of on the. It's not an isthmus. I don't remember what it's called, but you know, he's kind of on this corner of the continent, which is going to be really nice for a Vampire Coast faction, because I bet every single one of his settlements is probably a port, or nearly all of them, and that just kind of gives him a lot of coastline to work with to kind of branch out his armies as they set sail from his lands out to ravage the coastline of Lustria. Meanwhile, in the old world, we have the Sartosans. So Aranessa Saltspite is of course going to be terrorizing the southern realms. She's going to be terrorizing the Crusaders. You know, there's all these good guys now who are all on the coastline. Like, think about it. You've got the Imperial Penal Colony of Sunburg down here. You've got the Bretonnian Crusaders. You've got the High Elves of Eltharion who have come to strike down try and cull the numbers of greenskins. And amidst all of this, there are pirates greedily, rubbing their hands together because look at all these enemies they can take advantage of. Because you know that, a lot of these characters are going to be far too busy fighting against the endless legions of the Tomb Kings or dealing with the rampages of Scarbrand. So, this is honestly, the more factions that end up in the Southlands Thunderdome, I think the better off Aranessa Saltspite is. Because if you're, I think playing as her campaign, there is such a fun thematic experience to be had in being a ravager of the coast and taking advantage of all these do-gooder fools who showed up to try and save the world, or, seal away the books of Nagash, or strike down this terrifying greater demon that's manifested, or to, try and prevent another great wall from surging across the world. And then there's a pirate who's like, they're all distracted. Look at all this sweet money that nobody's protecting. So I do think there's some really fun potential to be had in that. And I do really think that her and Scrag the Slaughterer have a very high potential to be very good friends. The two of them seem like they would get along just peachy. You have Aranessa Saltspite being like, hey, I'll take the corpses from the sea and, I'll have my vampires resurrect them, and the Sartosan pirates will take a lot of the loot. You can have, all the land and take all the meat and stuff. You care much more for the meat and stuff. We know Greece's Goldtooth's into all that money stuff, but you're Scrag. You're going for the offerings of the Great Maw, And another thing is that something a lot of people have been pointing out that I agree with quite a bit is that for Scrag, if, from a prophecy perspective, or from being a prophet of the Great Maw perspective, going after the Galleon's Graveyard would make so much sense for Scrag, because it's the other end of the Great Maw. So you have the Great Maw over here, just outside the Mountains of Morn and the Warpstone Desert, where the physical, the actual Great Maw itself is, but it's burrowed all the way through the planet. And on the opposite side of the planet, it comes up in the ocean as the Galleon's Graveyard, or the Vortex, as it's sometimes known. And that place has been taken over by Noctilus, and he's basically perverted the power of the Galleon's Graveyard, because so much, everything that dies in the sea is drawn to this place. to be devoured and then spat back out, just like the Great Maw itself does. But Scrag would be very interested in finding this place. I would not be surprised if the Maw whispering in his mind is always encouraging him to find its other half, you know, to find the other side of it, so that the ogres can kind of unify the power of the Great Maw instead of only possessing one half of it. And Aranessa Saltspite hates Count Noctilus. Those two do not have a friendly relationship. Aranessa does hate the Norskins more than she hates Noctilus, I honestly think, but not by much. Noctilus is kind of one of the biggest bastards among the Vampire Coast roster or characters of myth and legend. So if there's anyone that Scrag could potentially convince to help him track down Noctilus and take the Galleon's graveyard, it would be Saltspite. But yeah, I think she's gonna have a super fun campaign just because of all these, you know, people that she can easily pick on. And plus, like, there's so much coastline in the world now. Now that we have the full Southlands, we have full Lustria, we have full Nagaroth, we have the sea lanes. Like, being a vampire coast pirate, it truly, there is no better time in Total War history to be a pirate. So then there's, of course, Noctilus. Noctilus still has his home in south of Ulthuan, which allows him, of course, to be a very annoying early game opponent for them. He's kind of the only realistic southern threat for Ulthuan. You know, you kind of have, now we've got Nakari in the north, you've kind of got Grom in the east, Noctilus in the south, and presumably I would think it's probably going to be Morthy being a pain in the butt from the west. But Noctilus has a really great position. He's always had a really great position because it's extremely defendable, and he can just pick a direction and go have fun. Like, he can literally just go anywhere in the world that he wants and just start devastating people, and I don't think that's going to change. So Noctilus still looks great as always. But then that leaves Madame Cylostra Direfin, who has a much better start position. So Cylostra has taken over on the Doomglades. So she has taken over, I believe, the Twisted Grove, if I recall correctly, but she's got a big settlement now, and she's right on the coastline and well positioned to invade Ulthuan. She's basically as close as she can get to Ulthuan without actually being on it, of course, with the exception of Arnheim, which is down here on the Bleak Coast, which is where a Lithnar should go, in my personal opinion, though, you know, he could also just move to Grey Hills, but I'm not going to. Anyway, the Lamprey being in the Doomglades, I think, is such a better fit. Now that Tretch has kind of vacated that space, it gives, like, you know, it's kind of empty over there. So putting a Vampire Coast character up to menace the High Elves and the Dark Elves, I think, is a really good change. It gives us, like, another really cool undead faction in Nagaroth, because I've always felt there should be, like, an undead presence. And the other thing that I really like is this kind of gives every major continent in the Western world a Vampire Coast antagonist, where Nagaroth has to deal with Cylostra, Lustria has to deal with Luther Harkon, the Old World has to deal with Aranessa Saltspite, and Ulthuan has to deal with Noctilus. I think that's actually very good portioning out of all kind of the big bads, and gives them all, like, really interesting opponents to fight against. You know, Cylostra Direfin, while the High Elves are kind of her main focus because she wants to take Lothern for herself so that she can give that performance to the Phoenix King and, you know, potentially sink the island, which of course would doom all of reality, she doesn't seem to care for elves very much at all. Cylostra is like the living embodiment of arrogance, considering it's her arrogance that got her killed in the first place when she tried to take over, or when she did successfully take over the Lamprey, because the captain was like, oh hey, there's a really big storm ahead of us and we're going to die if we go into that storm, so, you know, we need to take an alternate course to Ulthuan from Bretonnia. And Cylostra was like, that's gonna make me late for my performance. Nope. And literally just picked up the captain and hurled him overboard in a mutiny and was like, nope, we're sailing into this. And they sailed into it and they died. But Cylostra's bitterness and her like vengeful spirit was so strong that the god of storms, Stromfels, the god of sharks, pirates, and everything bad that the sea has to offer, Stromfels very interested in Cylostra and actually is the one who resurrected her. She is basically the prophet of Stromfels, or Stromfels herald in a sense. Literally of all of the Vampire Coast characters, she embodies Stromfels the hardest, which I've always found very, very interesting. Despite the fact, he's very heavily worshipped in Sartosa, and of course, I think all Vampire Coast characters would be at least a little bit, kind of tip of the hat to Stromfels. But I really, really, really like Cylostra's new start position. I did not like her in the Amara swamps or the jungles of Pahualaksa. That's a mouthful. She used to just have like a minor settlement. I think she was at like the Monument of the Moon or the Monument of the Sun, which was right down here. And it was such an awkward start position because it wasn't like really close to Ulthuan, and it was kind of just too close to the ocean territory of Harkon and Noctilus. And she just kind of got her ass kicked pretty quickly by all of the Savage Orcs that were down here, or Mazda Mundi, or Wolfheart. Like, some campaigns she could survive a really, really long time in Mortal Empires, but that was only due to the fact that there was really nobody around her that would kind of, snipe her out. But she just wasn't really a relevant character. This, I think, has a much, much higher potential for her to be interesting. And it actually gives Alithanar another interesting antagonist besides just Dark Elves. Alithanar can now be kind of working his way across Nagaroth, being a nuisance, and all of a sudden he comes up against Cylostra, and Cylostra does not like high elves. And he's like, oh, this is an opponent I don't actually care about, but I may need to deal with. Or alternatively, she might jump across the ocean to Nagaroth. And I could see Nakari being a very interesting potential ally for Cylostra Direfin, because if there is somebody that could absolutely fan that ego and manipulate Cylostra while still actually giving her what she wants, it would be Nakari. Could you imagine Nakari would be like, hey, you hate the High Elves and want to give the performance of eternity, you want to sink Ulthuan beneath the waves and give a performance to all the drowned denizens of the Isles. I want to kill Tyrion and Teclis particular. So tell you what, why don't we buddy up? I get the twins, you get the Phoenix King. Let's work this out. Let's have an arrangement. They could have a very, very interesting alliance. But overall, I'm personally really, really happy with the Vampire Coast. Since most of the characters didn't move, I don't think there's really too much to talk about. I am really looking forward to a Cylostra Direfin campaign, but I do think the other characters are going to be quite fun as well. I gotta say, I can't express how much I do really love Albric's new start position, because Albric, as like kind of this big servant of Manan, now actually has the ability to go after the Vampire Coast very specifically. Obviously he could push into the interior of Lustria, but I know if I play Albric, I'm probably going to just take over the Piranha Swamps, establish myself, get a province, and then it's just going to be me versus the Vampire Coast for the rest of the campaign. First go after Harkon and take as much of his territory as you can, and then set sail and go after Noctilus and the Pirates of Sartosa and all that stuff. I think that will be a very, very, very fun showdown between him and all those factions. But ultimately, the map's just looking better and better, man. It's looking better and better. And we've got nothing but banger factions for the remaining reveals. I think there's only 4 more left. We've got Dwarfs, Dark Elves, Warriors of Chaos, and oh gosh, I think there's one more. Dwarfs, Dark Elves, we got Beastmen, we got Tomb Kings, Vampire Counts, that's who we're missing. So if I recall correctly, I believe the order is, I think it's Dwarfs tomorrow, then Dark Elves, then Vampire Counts, then Warriors of Chaos, I believe is the order. But regardless, we'll have to see. So Nagaroth is about to get way more busy, but so is the Empire. And we're gonna have to see what's gonna happen with the Warriors of Chaos. The Warriors of Chaos have a lot of potential. Obviously we know a few of them, like we know like vaguely where Sigvald is. We know Bellicor's in Albion, and we know that Kolek Suneater is probably at the Chimera Plateau or the Skull Road or Kadatha, stuff like that. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what y'all think. Who among the pirates do you think is going to have the most interesting campaign now? Do you want to lead the Sartosans and you know, forge an ogre alliance with Aranessa Saltspite and then go to war with all these do-gooders that are around you? Would you rather be Luther Harkon and work with maybe Harkon the Black to dominate the southern hemisphere? Do you want to try out the new Cylostra campaign, or do you want to play Noctilus and just, you know, bring the world to heel? Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.